A lot of this is similar to the mud that you get when you mix the whole wheel, but they're subtly different, and we're going to be incorporating both complements mixed together plus your earth tones as a palette mixed with pure color in this project, which is called Atmospheric Perspective. It's also called Aerial Perspective. It's very different from linear perspective, which we learn in beginning drawing. 1 point, 2 point, and then it goes on and on and on, multiple vanishing points. It generally is involving structural things, buildings, furniture, boxes, railroad tracks, docks, things that are structural. Atmospheric perspective is a little more emotional. That's why they call it atmospheric. It's mood, it's space, it's depth, and it's created in a variety of ways. It can incorporate linear perspective like a cityscape, but the whole notion of atmospheric perspective is that things blur in the distance and are very crisp up close. And the standard way to achieve this with color is to use cool colors like blue in the background and warm colors like orange in the foreground, because warm colors tend to come closer to the eye and cool colors tend to recede. It's not always the case. Sometimes artists are able to achieve it by flipping that, but in this case it's encouraged to use warm in the front, cool in the back. And we're also going to be using mixes of color with these two scales, as well as mixing black, white, and gray. So it's a very complex set of colors that you have to work with. And it's a long project. You're going to have until May 22nd, like I said, to finish this. But before then, by the 8th, I'll have you do the measurements here and then fill out the labeling and then mix your scales. That's going to take some time to get those right. You want to get crisp hard edge, good paint consistency as always, and we want to have distinct steps between all of these on the scales. So let's go ahead and look at the measurements. I have it all written out on the module, but it's just hard to write out these sorts of things. It's easier to show it. So I'll go over here and measure this out. So you have your 15 by 20 board, and basically this is a 1/2 inch border all the way around. That's the easiest way to start, is to just do a 1/2 inch border all the way around. And as you know, I know most of you don't have a T-square, so you'll have to use a ruler, unfortunately, even though they get crooked, and just do 2 dots instead of 1, like we did on the first project when we taped it to the edge. You can also use a piece of cardboard to make sure it's not crooked. There's nothing worse than spending a lot of time on a project and then having it be crooked. It's just not good. So we'll want to make sure this is really even. And this part is 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And again, you can start out that way and just erase this part, because the center area is 14 by 14. This is going to be the area where you do your pencil drawing of an image that you select that represents aerial perspective. It can be anything that meets those parameters. Most people think about a landscape. You can also do a cityscape, a seascape, a nightscape, a dayscape. Some people even do planetary scapes. As long as you achieve this, it's going to work. And you're going to be inventing your own color scheme. That's why it has to be black and white, because you don't want to be influenced by the local color of a picture. And you can create mood. The main thing is just depth. So 14 by 14 here, and then in between you have 1/2 inch here, 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 1/2 inch here. The only difference is below and above these scales, because the scales are shorter than the square, it's 1.5 inches. So this is the only kind of weird thing. From here to here is 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. But it's sort of what you're left with when you're done doing this part. These scales are 2 by 12, and each one is going to be divided into 6 sections of 2 by 2. So these are all 2 by 2, 2 by 2, 6 of each. And then we can go ahead and start labeling this. I'll do it with a pen, but Might be easier for you to just kind of write it down as I go, because I'll just make a mess here scrawling things. So this is going to be where you draw your image. Now, since it's a square format, whatever picture you come across, you're going to think about it in terms of a square. If you print it, rather than just look on your phone to draw, you can fold it into a square, the area you want, or when you're on your phone, you can actually crop it into a square and work on it from there, or print it that way. Okay, so this is going to be where we do the drawing, and you're going to do all those things where I was talking about to create atmospheric perspective. I wrote in the module that the main thing with this project is you have to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Your goal is to make the foreground look so close to you that you feel like you could touch it. It has to be so close to your eye. And it's going to be a warm hue. And then the color behind it is going to be starting to get a little bit neutral, but not completely. Something like, you know, maybe it's a flower of grass or something like that. And then as you go further back, you're going to start creating a cool temperature. But the idea is to have foreground, middle ground, background. And everything in the front will be warm, bright, crisp, stark lines. You know, you want to have everything in here in the front. Let me move this over. So in atmospheric perspective, the goal is to have foreground, and then you have middle ground, and then you have something really close. It could be like a tree that you're looking through that's very crisp. Or it could be a person sitting here that's really, you can see a big person with their head sitting like that. Whatever. You can put people in it too. Maybe sitting on a hill here. Everything down here is going to be crisp. Everything that sticks out in the front is going to be crisp. And then you're going to start to see the lines get more lost and found as they go back. And then back here you want to add more and more and more and more depth. The idea is things go higher on the plane, you create depth by overlap. So repeated things get smaller, overlap, overlap. Even something like this. If you have a shape like that, and then you have another shape behind it, and then you have another shape behind it, and then you have a smaller shape, da-da-da-da-da, all the way up, you create depth. And then the higher the horizon line, the more depth you create. You don't want a low horizon line. That's why I want to check out your pictures first, because if your picture is too low in terms of horizon line, it's not going to achieve that. You want your horizon line to be way back here, way high. Another thing that helps is line density, where things are really close together, like if you have water or something, and then they spread out. So you have this line density that creates depth. And then of course you want to have something right in front, even closer to the bottom, that you can reach out and touch. You know, so that you can go here, here, here. Something I wrote on there in the module too is you need to create a value shift. Either dark to light or light to dark. Either way, but we want to fall in. Something that people do all the time that's really frustrating to someone who's been trained in perspective is when you ask someone to draw a railroad track or a street, like a street with those yellow rectangles in the middle, they'll draw it like this. And you see kids do this. You know, they draw the road like this. And then they try to put it on a mountain or something and think they're creating depth. But basically the only way you would ever see the road like that is if you're flying above it. And that doesn't happen. So what you really see in this case, that's 1 point perspective. So you're really seeing this, and even those center pieces go along this. So it gets flatter, closer together, more and more overlap. And stronger line quality here, fading into lost and found there, and then horizon there. Basically lay it down, lay it all down, whether you have those elements in there or if it's just landscape. Doesn't matter. Oh, also use a lot more paint down here than up here. Or if you have like a tree or a hand or something right here. Crisp, up close things should be warm and very generous in the paint consistency. And then as you go back, smoother paint consistency makes it look even further away. Your goal is going to be to incorporate these scales into it, which is challenging because they're so neutral. But I find that if you build with the neutrals and the values, black, chromatic, and achromatic first, let it dry, then you can weave in your bright colors and create that warm to cool shift. You can do this as an impressionistic technique. It can be hard edge, it can be blending. It's all up to you as long as it's based upon that image and incorporates these colors as well as pure accents of other color, bright color, and also creates the obvious effect of atmospheric perspective. Take your time looking for pictures. So anyway, these are all 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I guess that's it for the measuring. So by May 8th, I want you to submit the filled in parts and also the picture. So before you even start looking for a picture, go ahead and fill these in. And that's going to take a while. So once these are measured, go ahead and get started on that before you think about your picture. The first square here, and I put this on the module as well, is yellow plus mud. Remember, we made that in the first project. You use a big pile of yellow, small amount of mud. You don't want the brown to take over so you have a row of browns. We want to know on this row where that color came from as opposed to here where we don't. So there are different approaches. This is going to be yellow plus mud. I'll just put yellow plus, and remember mud is, I'll just put an M here. Mud is the mixture of yellow, blue, and red that you get when you mix them enough till they all neutralize. If it feels purple, add yellow. If it feels green, add red until you've got a nice, rich brown, something like this. You can't see it, really looks purple on there. It's kind of a brown there, but you're not using brown, you're mixing your own. Okay, so the 3 primary mud. Yellow plus mud, and then we're going to do green plus mud, then we're going to do blue plus mud, then we're going to do purple, which is violet plus mud, then red plus mud, yellow, green, blue, and then orange plus mud. Or you can do the other way, yellow, orange. Just make sure you label what they are on here on the side. And then this one, it's a little trickier. You start with yellow, and you look across the wheel. What's across from yellow? Purple. So this is yellow plus violet. Then you go to the next one. Yellow, orange, and then you go across the wheel to that one. So I always like to look right up at the wall if we were in the classroom, which is not an option right now. But here on the wheel, just so I get it right, even though I kind of know what it is. Here's the yellow, here's the red, here's the blue. And you know, we have our boards of this first project still in the classroom. So yellow, blue, red. Yellow and blue is green. Blue and red is violet. Red and yellow is orange. And then we have our tertiaries, yellow, green, blue, green, blue, violet, violet, red, violet, red, orange, and yellow, orange. So you have 12 colors and 6 combinations. Okay, so here, first one is yellow plus violet. You can double check if you want. Boom, boom. Find a color wheel anywhere. We're just mixing like that, each one. Okay, yellow plus violet, then yellow, orange, plus blue, violet, then orange plus blue, then red, orange plus blue, green, then red and green, then red, violet, and yellow, green. So try to get different ones. They're going to look similar, but do your best. And remember, nothing except those 3 primaries that we have on our list is allowed. If you even use one tube that says primary something, it's wrong. Or phthalo, or cobalt, or some set you got on sale that doesn't have these, or cadmium yellow light, or cadmium red medium, deep. Bad news. Just stick with the 3. Ultramarine, cadmium red medium, cadmium yellow medium. Boom, nothing. This whole project you can only use those 3 plus black and white. But here there's no black and white. All right, so fill out those scales, find a picture, and that'll be due to me first. And from there we'll move on. All right, it's a fun project. I know you'll enjoy it. And I'm going to attach a bunch of other videos from the internet about atmospheric perspective and landscape and stuff like that. Bye.